Hi, I'm Damon L. Jacobs, and I am sitting here with the one and only amazing Dr. Robert Grant, Principal Investigator of IPREX. I call you the Jonas Salk of PrEP.
My goodness.
Truly a hero and inspiration to our community, who has guided so many of us, especially me, about understanding and speaking about PrEP in pleasure into our daily lives. So I'm very honored to speak with you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you too, Jamin. I admire all of your work so much. You've really had an impact on the world, and
Thank
you've really
you.
brought PrEP to the broader community.
Thank you. Thank you. So speaking of the broader community, it's now been 4.5 years since I began the Facebook group, and we just passed 20,000 members recently. So
That
when
must be a record.
it's really amazing. When we started this group, I caused a little bit of controversy and got some pushback because the day I started the group in my underwear on July 1st, 2013 in Brooklyn,
I'll take your word on that.
I was there. I said that PrEP works by preventing new infections. It has a 99% efficacious rate if used daily. That was the number I threw out at the time. 4.5 years later, would you say that that is still an accurate number to be sharing?
Yes, that number came out of our published work from IPREX. We were able to see what level of protection people enjoyed with different levels of dosing, and those who had drug levels that indicated that they were taking the PrEP daily were 99% plus protected.
97% plus how much?
Well, in fact, we didn't see anyone become HIV positive who had drug levels that indicated use of 4 or more tablets per week.
Wow.
And so,
so
it was 99% as a euphemism for 100%.
Okay, so that's important to understand. 99% is about as close to 100% as we can ever get in medicine and research, right?
Yeah.
And all we've seen in the last 4.5 years, all the demonstration projects, research trials, real world experience, it sounds like you're saying that 99% plus number really still holds up.
Yeah, we have hundreds of thousands of people taking PrEP. We think that that PrEP has prevented tens of thousands of infections, and there are a few case reports, on the less than on one hand, so less than 5 that I know of, and each one of them is complicated because it comes from clinical practice, and we don't really know everything that may have happened, but I'm willing to say that there's 5 cases where someone appears to have gotten HIV positive while taking PrEP, but we don't really know how much PrEP they were taking, and we don't know all the circumstances. But let's just keep in mind that this is 5 cases, and there's hundreds of thousands of people using PrEP, and PrEP is preventing tens of thousands of cases. So
Wow.
I'm confident that it is reducing HIV risk by 99% or more among people who actually use PrEP.
Right. Now, under the question of using PrEP, we also now know a lot more about on-demand dosing from the ePrEP trial and the subset that was studied. So this is people who follow a certain regimen and use PrEP only as needed for certain events if they're not regularly sexually active.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about the information and the data that have been brought to us about on-demand dosing?
Well, we have more and more information available, and I had a chance to discuss all of the data and review it in Paris last year, and I was impressed that between France and Amsterdam and Canada, there were 1,800 men who have sex with men who were using this on-demand dosing. And no one had become HIV positive over the course of a year of using this. And you may say, well, maybe they were not really at risk for acquiring HIV, but they were getting gonorrhea, chlamydia, and syphilis at a rate of about 20% per visit. So wow. There was exposure there, and they were not getting HIV. And so I think the data speak for themselves. I mean, the trial showed very high level of efficacy and risk reduction. We know that 30 to 60% of gay men, when offered on-demand dosing as an alternative to daily dosing, will prefer on-demand dosing. Mm-hmm. And we know that now thousands of people are doing it, and they're not getting HIV infected. Wow. And so we're looking forward to starting to offer that in our clinics.
Wow. Now, there are some people who have shared publicly in my group that they've kind of merged the idea of daily dosing with on-demand dosing and follow a schedule of what they call the T's and S's schedule, meaning they're using Truvada on the days of the week that start with T and S, meaning Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday.
Mhm.
that they're taking it 4 times a week consistently on these doses. What do you think about that kind of consumer adaptation of this data to use it in this way?
Well, I love it when people are finding ways that work for them. And so, if keeping track of the T's and S's works for them, I think more power to them. As long as they're taking 4 or more tablets per week,
Mhm.
and their exposure is mainly through anal sex, then it should work, and it should
Wow.
work really well.
Wow.
And I think maybe the lesson learned here is that it's good to be creative about how to adapt something like PrEP into your life, and that's what matters most. Find some way to take it well and to enjoy it.
Okay, okay, that's really interesting. And I think those are the conversations that we need to have more about with consumers about how to make this regimen work
Hmm.
for them. Now, we also spoke 5 years ago that when the FDA approval came around, you, based on the iPrex trial, were saying we anticipate maybe 1 in 200 people using PrEP might experience some kidney changes
Hmm.
as a result of using Truvada. Do you feel like that has held up over time, or is that more or less than what you expected?
Well, overall, I think that's about what we're seeing. But
Mhm,
keep in mind that these are minor changes. They're
mhm.
just changes in the blood value, and 80% of those changes will disappear without even stopping PrEP. So
Mhm.
people continue to take PrEP and it just disappears. And we know that the change in the blood test can vary depending on whether someone's well hydrated and whether they've been exercising, whether they've been using supplemental nutrition.
Whether
There's
they
just
drank the night before.
whether they so a lot of those little fluctuations just go away on their own, and very few people will have a confirmed issue with their kidney function which requires that they stop taking PrEP. And in those people, stopping it for a month or two is enough to just have the kidney go back to normal, and then they can restart PrEP and the problem doesn't return. So it's rare. And then there's new data analyzed from iprex as well as the very large Partners PrEP study done in Africa, where both groups have now shown that this slight increase in blood test for kidney function is really only occurring in people over the age of 40 and people who started PrEP with marginal kidney function. So we're
Mhm.
not seeing it in younger people, and we're not seeing it in people whose kidney function was quite well into the normal range when they started.
Wow. Okay. So we're really more aware now that age, and I'm a man over 40, so I
Mhm.
really want to be more aware,
Mhm.
not worried, but just aware of making sure that I'm showing up and having my blood drawn and my kidneys being checked regularly as I use Truvada over the years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
although yes, and to be sure, regularly means just once every 6 months.
Mhm,
I don't think it has to be done more frequently than that.
mhm.
And among people less than 40, even every 6 months is probably more than they
Okay. Now, the one other thing that I think needs to be talked about, especially in the US, is women in PrEP and making sure, and I find as an educator, I want to make sure I'm delivering clear and effective messaging. Would you say that 99% number that we talked about before, does that apply to cisgender women? Or do you think we need to be a little more nuanced or careful about that message?
I think it's really important that people know that PrEP is for women too. It's highly effective in women. The World Health Organization did an extensive review where they compared the efficacy of PrEP for women versus men, and there was no significant difference in how well PrEP works for men and women.
Mhm.
And keep in mind that there were 3 large studies that included women that showed that it was highly effective for women as well. When it comes to the 99% figure, we don't have as much precision for women, so we can't have as much confidence in that. But in fact, we're not seeing women who use PrEP become infected if they use it consistently.
Mhm.
Some people will say that for vaginal exposure, whether it's for trans men or cisgendered women, the target adherence is more like 6 to 7 tablets per week
Mhm.
rather than 4 or more tablets per week. And there is some evidence for that being a better adherence goal
Mhm.
for vaginal exposure.
Mhm.
But as long as that goal is met, PrEP will work, and it'll work extremely well, and it's well tolerated
Great.
for vaginal exposure as well.
And like you mentioned, adherence might be more key for cisgender women or transgender men. Like the on-demand thing we were talking about, that was all research done on
That's all for anal exposure.
for anal exposure. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And women have anal exposure too.
Absolutely.
So that 4 more tablets per week or on-demand dosing, these are all strategies that have been developed for anal exposure,
Great.
and particularly in MSM. So for vaginal exposure, be it trans men, cis women, I think our goal really is to try to achieve daily dosing.
Okay. One last question.
Mm-hmm.
So we have seen in these last 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
cities like San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, London, we're seeing all these drops in new HIV diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not quite seeing that in certain parts of the US, particularly cities with high prevalence of new diagnoses,
Mm-hmm.
with really Baton Rouge, New Orleans, parts of Florida and Mississippi being at the top of that list. What would you recommend? What needs to be done? What can be done in these areas to bring HIV diagnoses down in these areas, as has been done in some of these other liberal major cities?
Well, I think more of you would help.
Thank you. I'll clone me.
I think
but thank you.
more PrEP facts, more sex positive messaging around how you can have the life that you want and avoid HIV, and that PrEP is your friend, condoms are your friends, and we can really keep ourselves safe. I think that kind of messaging and that kind of mobilization in other parts of the world can make a big difference. We've seen HIV plummet in cities where PrEP is rolled out.
Yeah.
And that's been a consistent finding now in Australia, in the UK, and several cities in the United States. And so I think saying yes to PrEP is the solution, and you are very good at helping people say yes.
Thank you. We'll put that on my tombstone, okay? He made people say yes. We'll mark that down for prosperity. Bob, thank you so much. Thank you for answering these questions. Thank you for all your work, your inspiration, your encouragement. We're working together. We're doing this, and I'm truly grateful to be in this with you. So,
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,